Hello, dear ones. Father Peter John coming to you from All Saints Orthodox Church in Bloomington, Indiana. Christ is in our midst. Blessed feast of St. Demetrios the great martyr. I want to talk a little bit about him. He was a military figure, actually rather high-ranking. He was made the proconsul of Thessalonica by the pagan emperor Maximian himself. And so Demetrius then, he was charged with carrying out the command of the emperor to, quote, kill anyone who calls upon the name of Christ, end quote. Well, Demetrius was a Christian himself, so being the most powerful man in the city, he decided to use his office not to persecute Christians, but to preach Christ. And so that's what he did. He knew what he was getting into, but he spread the gospel. And so what happened was the Emperor Maximian, he found out about this, right? He was off at a war campaign, and after winning that battle, they decided to come back through Thessalonica and really make a show of this with St. Demetrius. So they came back through Thessalonica. St. Demetrius was immediately arrested, thrown into prison. Some say he was thrown into a bathhouse. I'm not sure why that would be, but there are slightly different variations on the story that will happen after 1700 years. And so he's being kept there. Meanwhile, awaiting execution. Meanwhile, the emperor decides that he's going to have some fun, and he, for gladiatorial games and things. There's one certain figure, though, at this time. He was actually German, we're told. His name was Laius, and he was, I guess, a giant of a man, an undefeated wrestler and fighter. And he challenged any of the Thessalonians to battle. And so all these various men came forward, and they tried to wrestle him and whatever, and nobody could defeat him. Well, there was this one man, whose name was Nestor, and he was a Christian. And he went to St. Demetrius and said, the Emperor Maximian and this wrestler, Laius, they're making a mockery of Thessalonica, of Christianity. And he said, will you bless me to go and do hand-to-hand combat with this man? And so St. Demetrius, he prayed for Nestor, and he blessed him. And then Nestor goes then to the arena, and he makes the challenge. And as he's walking into the arena, he said, may the God of Demetrius defend me. Okay, the gauntlet is thrown down. Well, Nestor goes in, begins doing hand-to-hand combat with this giant Laius, and finally he defeats him. And as he defeats him, again, different twists on the story, but it appears that he throws him, and Laius lands on a spear, which kills him. The emperor is infuriated. He's infuriated that his undefeated fighter has been defeated and killed. Well, it didn't take much to figure out that the prayers of St. Demetrius and the name of Christ were behind all of this. And so Emperor Maximian sent word for his soldiers to immediately go to where Demetrius was and to run him through with spears, which is what they did. He died for Christ in the year, I believe it was 306 in Thessalonica. And also Nestor, of course, was commanded to be martyred, which happened. Now, St. Demetrius, he was buried, and later a church was built over his relics. And then there was this occasion where he had been gone for, I think, 200-300 years. And dead, that means. And so they decided to open his grave and, to venerate his relics. And so anyway, they went to do this, and they found, number one, that his relics were incorrupt, that his body, after all of these years, had not rotted. Number one. Number two, they found that he was, the way it's described, it almost sounds like he was in a pool of myrrh, like there was myrrh streaming from his body. He is called the Myrrh-gusher. Now, you have to be exuding a whole lot of myrrh to be called a Myrrh-gusher. And he's called a Myrrh-gusher. And people would dip their finger in the myrrh and be blessed, and many, many healings take place. And this myrrh just apparently, I've never been to Thessalonica, but I'm told that sometimes you'll just be walking by the street on the church, and you just get this wave, this smell of roses, of myrrh in your face, because his body, after all of this time, is still exuding this healing myrrh. Quite an amazing story, quite an amazing saint of God who gave up everything for his Savior who gave up everything for him and for each of us. Christ is in our midst. He is and ever shall be.